Welcome to Everyday Ethics. I appreciate everybody that's here. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and I hope to have a really nice discussion today. As Greg Lewis says, ideas matter. Yes, they sure do. So, I've been thinking about something about being sick. As you may recall, last month I had COVID, a pretty bad case, not life threatening, but pretty bad nonetheless. Hi, Katrin. Over the weekend, my girlfriend was sick. I don't know if it was a stomach bug or food poisoning, but nonetheless, I got to thinking, and I've been thinking about when I would be sick in prison, and I was thinking about what is the proper way to behave towards others when one is sick. In other words, how much do we owe to others to not expose them to germs and viruses? Now, on the face of it, it seems like a relatively easy question to answer. You keep your distance. You don't want passing things to other people. But in the case of work, for instance, I remember being incarcerated and I worked in the prison industries, and I would catch a cold. Now in prison, you catch a cold that goes around everywhere. And I would think to myself, okay, I don't want to be inconsiderate of other people and go to work and get them sick. Well, but at the same time, I didn't want my boss to think that I'm some, wuss who skips work over a runny nose. And this would be like a tension inside. And I never was able to fully resolve it because there seems to be conflicting ethical considerations. So somebody may ask, well, Mike, you're an egoist, so why does it matter at all if you get other people sick? Well, the fact of the matter is, I have a rule of thumb that I don't do to other people things that I don't want done to me. Hypocrisy is not in my interest. Holding different standards for myself than I do for other people is not in my own interest. So if somebody's sick, I don't want them coughing on me. I don't want them, coming around me, sharing food, whatever. So I won't do that to other people. Now, in the case of work, I don't want to develop that reputation of being somebody who takes work off simply because he's sick. Maybe the boss says, hey, every time this guy gets a cold, he misses work. I can't have him. Plus, when you're out of work, you're likely not getting paid. So I'm curious, what does the audience think about this? What is the proper etiquette when you are sick? Do you throw caution to the wind and go to work? Greg Lewis says work from home if you can. Well, that's good if you can do that, sure. But I'm assuming you cannot do that. So what do you do? What do you think the proper thing to do is? It's a complicated thing because on one hand, working is in my interest, but on another hand, spreading virus is not in my interest to do, right? So I really wonder, feel free to ask any questions you'd like, audience. Of course, we're not limited to the topic that I've brought to the table here, so you can ask anything you'd like. Remember, we do have the super chats and super stickers, and they are very, very greatly appreciated. Also, for those of you interested in politics today at 3:30 p.m., I will be debating a guy who advocates what he calls democratic capitalism. That'll be right here on this channel. I would highly appreciate it if you would join in on the discussion. That would be very good. So now, currently, I live in a house. I'm good. I'm not sick. Thank you for asking, no name. Deeper with Diego says, I go to work when I was sick. I sneeze into my sleeve and I wash my hands. No one else ever gets sick. It's not hard to not infect others. What your job is matters, of course. Jenna Clean makes a good point. If you work around immune compromised people, stay away from them. I agree. I kind of disagree with Diego a little bit on that. On construction, yeah, that's okay. But he works in construction, so those types of guys aren't really going to give a damn. So there is that, right? But you can pass your sickness around without, you could do things to, minimize the chances, sneezing and coughing into your sleeve, continually washing your hands. Maybe you would even wear a mask. I don't know. I've never done that while I'm free. but you could still, there's no silver bullet that's going to prevent rather people from getting ill. And and that's ultimately what you want to do. FF Mormani says, for performance gigs I cancel when sick. I don't want to get other people sick, but I also can't play my instruments or sing when sick. Well, that adds another layer to it. Maybe your illness actually prevents you from working. Catherine says, depends how sick one is. Also, one should consider what does more damage, one person staying home due to being sick a few days, or having half the staff at home because everyone is sick now. Well, that's another consideration. And Greg Lewis says, not at nearly $70 per ounce, makes expensive rounds. Okay, I don't know what Greg's talking about there. There's a side conversation. And then there's a situation. So, okay, Greg, thanks. I live in a house. My girlfriend stays here with me. We have a room downstairs, and my friend Subby owns the house, and he has a significant other that lives here as well. And so I want to do my best to not to get them sick. So of course, when I'm ill, hey Danny, I wash my hands. I do all the things Diego said, and I've become very apt at not passing around diseases from being in prison. I've learned, a lot of tricks. I don't know about tricks, basic, wash your hands, don't sneeze on people, but also, don't touch things. Don't spread your stuff around. But in a house like this, I don't want to get anybody else sick. But at the same time, I do need to do things. I mean, I have to use the same bathroom that they use. And I need to, well, I don't need to, but if I want coffee, I have to use the same coffee machine. And if I want to eat, the silverware and whatnot, unless I go out and buy plastic stuff, I suppose that's an option too, to do that. You could buy plastic utensils. So there's something. But there's something else for me. So in prison, when you get sick, the cellmate inevitably acts as if you've committed a crime. Right. The cellmate acts like you've done this on purpose just to impose on him. He doesn't grasp that you are sick and don't want to be sick any more than he does, that you did not do this on purpose. Daniel Suska says he'll send me whatever I need. $50 would be very nice. I could use $50. I don't know if I need it, but I still would like $50. Who wouldn't? Greg Lewis says, try to live in a manner that reduces the likelihood of contracting an illness to reduce sharing the wealth. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just the type of thing that I've trained myself in thinking about. Ethics is I know that a big part of my problem and why I've got is, Danny, please stop that. Is that I always want to know, because I know that before I went to prison, I lived in a way that never considered how my behavior impacted other people. So I've taken a lot of time thinking about the other yacht club tells me I'm a bootlicker. Okay, I'm a bootlicker. But anyway, so I try to Jenna Clean, thank you. Thank you so much, Jenna. You see, the other yacht club, I actually provide a service by doing the show, and people only pay if they think that I've done a good job. So if you think that's begging, you and I have a different idea of what begging is. But anyways, back to my story. I get sidetracked. I do that a lot. But anyway, so I've trained myself into how my behavior is affecting other people. I don't want to negatively impact others by being inconsiderate, by being rude. And, if you're sick and you're just, sneeze into your hand, go grab things, that's being rude. And it's being very inconsiderate. So I try not to do that. I try not to do that in here. And I think that this is an area, that warrants discussion. So Deeper with Diego says they blame you for being sick, like you're doing it on purpose. Is that their conspiracy mind kicking in? No, Diego. What it is the idea that they are entitled, that they have rights that supersede the rights of everybody else. So when they get sick, it's not an intrusion, but when you get sick, it's Oh, stuff like that you're dealing with, or, you gotta, oh, look at this, a super sticker from Greg Lewis. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, sir. Very, very much. The great Greg Lewis. Oh, Greg, by the way, I did catch the discussion between Craig Biddle and Michael Humer. I thought it was a good discussion. I thought, and again, I like Mike Humer, but again, very difficult to pin him down on what exactly it is that he's talking about. And I find that kind of frustrating, to be perfectly honest with you. All right, so this guy's a commie that we have in here, and now I'm getting rid of him. Okay, this show, I'm not going to get rid of him. I'm going to leave him here, but I'm going to explain something. This show here is not a capitalist show. It's not a show about politics. It's not a show about economics. It is a show about ethics. We discuss everyday ethics and how to apply our ethical thinking to everyday occasions. So that's what the show is about, Yacht Club. It's not about politics. If you want to make comments on politics, we have the Capitalist Corner every single day every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 Pacific. Or I'm having a debate at 3:30 with a guy who's advocating what he calls democratic capitalism, which just means the government intervenes in the economy. Yes, the channel name is the Capitalist Corner, but there's different shows on the channel. This specific show is about everyday ethics. Who Prays for Satan is here. Thank you, Persephone, for joining the show. But I really want to get back to this idea, and we can expand it, of course, beyond just being sick to how our behavior affects others. Right. In prison, for instance, guys slam dominoes, they yell, they scream, they don't care how their behavior is impacting other people. And as an egoist, I do care how my behavior impacts other people. Not out of a sense of altruism, really. Just I think for one, I think it's common human decency just to not be a dick. Right. You don't want to be a dick. I think that's, basically common sense. But also, again, it's not being hypocritical, not acting in ways that I don't want other people to act towards me, not doing things that annoy me when other people do them. I also find that when I'm not a dick, my relationships are a lot smoother with my girlfriend, with my friends, with my family. When I was a dick, when I was young, my relationships were all very, very, very screwed up. I'm looking for a question, folks. Let's get. I didn't put this up here. I don't think my boy Danny. That's not him in the photograph, but he gave $4.99 in a super chat. So Greg Lewis says capitalism is the ethical system, but it is a consequence of ethics, not an independent goal to be achieved by force, feeding it down everybody's throat. No. That gets down to the initiation of force. Now Greg feels cheap. You're not a cheap Greg. You're actually you're a treasure. Daniel says nobody wants to be around sick people, especially in small spaces. Being sick seems to be very inconvenient to others. Well, in small spaces, you definitely don't. Like when I was in a cell and somebody gets sick, right? And they come in the cell, it's like, because you're going to get it. Like it's not, the person's coughing in their sleep. The odds of getting sick are very, very, very high. I just wonder, Jenna Kleem says, what do I think when I see someone wearing a mask? I don't care. Like it doesn't, first of all, I'm opposed to mask mandates, the government making people wear masks. But if somebody wants to wear one, what the hell do I care? It's not impacting me. It's not affecting me. I also don't know why the person's wearing it. I did occasionally see people wearing masks before COVID. Right? Maybe that person has a compromised immune system. Maybe they have a virus that they don't want to spread. Maybe they have an illness. I don't know. And I'm not just going to assume why, but let's just say that they wear it out of precaution. They don't want to get sick. Why is that my business? I'm not going to do it. because I find the discomfort of wearing a mask worse than catching a cold. So, I would play the odds, but if somebody else makes a different decision, it's really not my business. Some people get their knickers in a twist over it, but that's not going to be my thing ever. Mr. Deagle says, I don't mind being around sick people, but that's probably because I almost never get sick. Well, if you never get sick, then you almost never get sick. You probably wouldn't care about being around them. Greg Lewis says the price of plastic bubbles needs to come down to the point where they can be worn to work. Reminds me of the Bubble Boy on Seinfeld. I'm a big, oh, look at this. FF Mormani with the $9.99 super sticker. Thank you so very much, FM Mormani. That is so appreciated. So appreciated. But Seinfeld, I find, has a lot of interesting scenarios about, what should you do? What don't you do? What are you obligated to tell other people? There's the there's the episode, of course, where George pees in the shower. And a big discussion, erupts. First, the question is, why the hell would he do that? And George says, well, he understands, that he's got, it's very dangerous to hold it. And so it's unhealthy. And therefore that's why he did it. And, Jerry says to him, well, what do those journals you've read tell you about standing in a pool of someone else's urine? That can't be too healthy. So there's sort of like a cost benefit assessment going on there. But the interesting thing was that somebody saw George, right? That's interesting to me. So the person was contemplating reporting him because it was at the gym to the gym. The same person ends up working out on a machine and leaving it all sweaty, which he's not supposed to do, which also violates the rules. So while the two aren't the same, each is inconsiderate and each is against the rules of the given gym that they were at. So if you see somebody doing something unethical at work, do you report them? And two, why is it in this scenario any less disgusting for the guy to leave sweat all over the machine than for George to pee in the shower? And why is it any more unethical for George to do? Or is it more inconsiderate of George? I think that there's the ick factor, right? That it gives us the icks, but sweat is pretty gross too, right? I mean, I don't want to be drowning in somebody else's sweat any more than I want to be standing in their urine. So, but Seinfeld offers a lot of interesting episodes like that. There's the one where Kramer, he gives food to the homeless guy and he gives it to him with Tupperware, and then Kramer wants the Tupperware back. Is the homeless guy obligated to give him the Tupperware back? So as my only point here in this is that as we go through this show and through the days, there's a good chance I will be making a lot of Seinfeld references. One of my favorite shows of all time. Also House is my favorite show. I think it's an incredible television program. I think that the dialogue is superb and there's a lot of very interesting situations. House is an ends justifies the means guy. Right? That it doesn't matter what House does. His whole thing is results. As long as he gets results, he's happy. If his team gets results, even if it means lying to him, even if it means, skirting the rules, breaking them outright, as long as the results are good, they're good. Yes, I did, Mr. Deagle. I believe you're talking about the episode, correct me if I am wrong, where the daughter, seduces her father. The daughter is a beauty pageant contestant who I think is 15. And Jenna, you need help. Why? Because she's never seen them. Okay. So the episode that Mr. Deagle is talking about are a brother and sister who I believe they were given up for adoption, and they ended up meeting and falling in love, and it turned out that they were related. Yes, Mr. Deagle, I have seen it. If you're going to ask me what I think the ethical status of those two people is, that's a tough one, and it's way, way beyond the purview of everyday ethics. That is a complex ethical situation, right? Where the two people did not know they were brother and sister, but they got together. They loved each other, and then found out in the hospital that they were actually related. That's a tough one. That would be very, very sad if it happens. And of course it can. I mean, with the amount of sperm donors and you know uh, adoption and things of that nature. So yeah, it can happen. I thought you were talking about the episode where the daughter was actually was born a hermaphrodite and was dominantly male, but didn't know it or some such thing. It's a little tough, for me to remember. But that was the gist of it. Was she was actually a male with an inverted sex organ or something, and she seduced her dad. It was real sick. Those aren't that's not a very tough ethical dilemma for me, but they do have some ethical dilemmas. Greg Lewis says vasectomy and or tubes tied. On the episode of House, no, I think they broke up. It's been a while since I've seen that episode. But there was another episode of House where Chase had the opportunity they were treating a dictator, a murderous dictator from another country. And Chase murdered the guy. Chase is one of the doctors. He gave him the wrong medication intentionally so that it would kill him. And his logic was he's going to be saving, hundreds of thousands of lives by doing that. And, you think to yourself, okay, it's a TV show, but what if you were a doctor and Adolf Hitler was there, or Mussolini or Stalin or Chairman Mao, and you had the ability to stop him? What would you do? I mean, those are complex questions. I like those types of things sometimes, but not for this show. Greg Lewis says utilitarian justification. It could be a defense of others, Greg, to be honest with you, to kill that guy to prevent him from murdering other people. It could be defense of others. I've never really sat down and analyzed it to the point that I would have to come to a firm conclusion, but I think that argument could be made. But again, see, that's the thing with ethics is there are a lot of, for instance, what they call lifeboat situations that you're probably never going to be attached to. Lee gives me 2 pounds, $1.99 in pounds, and says, "Good evening, princess." That's what she calls me. I don't mind. So anyways, why is the answer always murder? Never try to change. Well, they weren't going to change the dictator. He wasn't up for that on the television show. But back to what the hell was I going to say now? We've got so many questions now. Okay, so back to what I was saying about lifeboats. Lifeboat questions are basically like, well, if you're on a lifeboat and there's only room for 3 people and there's 4 on it, would you be ethical in throwing one of them off? The problem is, like Ayn Rand said, I don't live on lifeboats. So those don't really interest me that much. Jenna Kleem says, back to ethics at work. Where is the line? Stealing a pen, texting. I'm not a big fan of, stating an absolute line that because whenever you do that, it's a very difficult thing to say. I wouldn't steal a pen from work, and whether I was texting or not at work would be dependent on what the boss thought about it. Did the boss mind if I texted at work? Is it interfering with my work? The main thing to keep in mind is if I'm at a job, I'm there to do my best for my employer. Right. So anything that I do that takes away from me doing for my best for my employer is not a good sign. It's a sign of poor character on my part, whether that be stealing a pen, texting, whatever. But a lot of that depends on context. Maybe the boss says, hey, we have a lot of downtime here. When there's downtime, if you want to text, go ahead. Maybe the boss says, go ahead and take the pen. and I don't ultimately know, but the standard there has to be that when you've agreed to take a job from somebody, it's implicit that you are going to do your best job. So, Mr. Deagle says, can you do an episode on incest? Emotionally, I find it disgusting, but I don't have a rational argument for it, especially with distant relatives. Um, I don't know if I want to do that because this show is about everyday ethics, and I just don't find that incest is something that most people are confronted with. I don't think that it affects many people's decisions. I don't think that many people are motivated to do it. And the purpose of this particular show is to help with that, to help us all grow ethically so that we're making better decisions for our lives. It might be a special episode, Mr. Deagle. Let me consider it. And, then we can figure it out. You guys are having, this is, Danny says incest is repulsing. And then, Mr. Deagle says, yes, but why? And then Danny says, well, why is it gross? Why, and so if we're looking for a logical ethic, which is what we're teaching, the question isn't, it can't just be, well, I find it disgusting, because that's not a logical answer, right? That's not a reasonable answer. There's all kinds of things that people may find repellent. That doesn't mean they're unethical or immoral. It just means that the person finds them repellent. That particular topic just doesn't interest me much. It's just, like I said, it's not something that people are dealing with. I think that people do deal with getting sick and whether they should miss work or not. I think that people do deal with, whether they should be stealing a pen or texting at work. I like to deal with more practical stuff, everyday stuff that we're all dealing with, because I think that is a better way to grow. Greg Lewis says dime store ethics, not a specialty store browsing adventure. Yeah. Maybe. Mr. Deagle, though, I'll give it some consideration. I don't know if it's something that I really would like to do. Like I said, I don't find it a very interesting topic for conversation. And Jim Valiant says, but what if Martians invade and put us under a trace, rendering us unable to recognize close relatives, except when on a trolley heading to a nuclear bomb on a high holy day? Well, that's a good episode, Jim. That's one that we could definitely do. We could discuss that. Lee Frazier catches on. She says, I don't think that would ever happen. And that's kind of the point, is that ethics has to do with how we should live our lives. It's not to find edge cases. It's not to find complicated puzzles that are different. Lee Frazier. Yeah. It's not to find puzzles that are difficult to solve. It's about, what should I do now? What should I do later today? What should I do tomorrow? That's what ethics is all about. And that's what this show is all about. And that's what we're going to. It's Lee Frazier, Lee, not Lay, Lee. Greg Lewis is stuck in analysis paralysis over the great Jim Valiant's example here about Martians invading. Oh gosh. I love you guys. This is a great audience, a great conversation. Danny, maybe when we go out for coffee on Wednesday, or is it Tuesday? It's supposed to be Tuesday. Danny, you let me know when we're having the coffee, and maybe we could have a deep dive into incest and figure out, what we think about it. Maybe that'll be fun. And then you can hook up with Mr. Deagle and discuss it. So we're running out of time now. I will be back tomorrow with a new topic, a new discussion. Thank you all again for the super chats, super stickers, and thank you for just joining the show. I really appreciate it. It's so much fun, and it's so edifying to have good discussions with good people. Remember, in 30 minutes, I will be debating whether democratic capitalism is a good thing. I think it'll be fun. I hope you will tune in. It's on this very channel. Okay. Thank you so very much for being here. Take care.